tell you, when Sarah Lynn's been gone for a week, remember the next week when she's back, just how blessed we are to have her. That was amazing. Now, I'm going to apologize. I forgot to throw this in so I don't dry out before I got here. Alright, so this morning we're continuing through our study in Romans. And we're in Romans chapter 1, verses 16 and 17. And this is actually going to be a morning where there's going to be quite a lot of information coming at you. Because this is a very well-known passage, yes. But at the same time, it's a very deep, deep passage. And we're going to try and dig out as much as we can. We're not going to get it all dug out. Martin Lloyd-Jones did 2 sermons on this to cover 16 and 17. Spurgeon did 3. I'm going to do 1 and hopefully try and get you out there on time. So we'll see. With that in mind, would you please open your Bibles and stand as we honor the reading. Romans chapter 1, verse 16 reads, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. For in it the righteousness of God is revealed, from faith to faith, as it is written, but the righteous man shall live by faith." Bow your heads with me. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you this morning, Lord. Thank you that we can come before you, counted as righteousness due to faith, since we cannot earn righteousness upon our own. Lord, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for this time together. We thank you for this message. Lord, we thank you for your Son, with whom we are able to find salvation. We ask this morning that you would glorify yourself, make much of your name in this place. Lord, if it is your will, please send revival to Cotton Center. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, I said men have written multiple sermons, and I'm not talking like they've preached this message 3 times. I'm talking as they preached through Romans. Charles Spurgeon took 3 straight sermons to get through these 2 verses. You may think, man, that sounds like a lot. It is. But the reason is it's actually the key. These 2 verses is the key to understanding all of the book of Romans. This book was written sometime about AD 58. It was written in the winter. Obviously, we've covered some of the background. It's written to the church at Rome. But there's something that we need to know about Rome this week in order to understand what Paul's doing here. Rome at this time is like Las Vegas, San Francisco, New York, Amsterdam, Bangkok, all rolled into one. It was called the mistress of the world because it drew the world's best and worst. It drew the world's best thinkers because the other world's best thinkers were there. It drew the world's best mathematicians because the other world's best mathematicians were there. Any discipline, if you were in the top, you wanted to go to Rome. But at the same time, it was a city full of debauchery. that was your thing, you went there too. So Paul sets the gospel over and against this city and the Greek tragedy that had long invaded it. When I say the Greek tragedy, what I mean is that there was this intellectual, philosophical culture in the Greek world that had invaded Roman society. And you may say, well, how was that a tragedy? Intellect and philosophy are not a bad thing. You see, the problem was it was this intellectual, philosophical culture going nowhere. It started and ended with ideas. There was no action. I make no bones about it. I love philosophy. Love it. Eat it up from a Christian worldview. But I understand its relationship to theology. Why? Because I am, by training, a theologian. And theologians, in the classic sense, understood that, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, at one time, on every college campus in the United States of America, theology and philosophy were in the science buildings. Theology was said to be the queen of science, and philosophy was her handmaid. See, I said I'm a theologian first. Why? Because philosophy is the handmaid. But Rome worshipped philosophy. There was nothing more a Roman wanted to do than to sit around and to listen to new ideas. That sounds like Facebook. A little bit. Right? But it was all ideas. There was no action. And into this comes Paul, who says, I'm unashamed of the gospel going somewhere. Wasn't ashamed of the most powerful, thrilling, wonderful, amazing message the world had ever heard. Wasn't ashamed of a message that is all action. You can't have gospel without action. Every time the gospel is preached, there is action on both sides. The person preaching the gospel is committing the action of preaching the gospel to someone, and, if done right, telling them, now that you have heard this message, you have to make a choice. And the other person then commits an action. There is always a choice made when the gospel is presented. Yes or no? Always. They may tell you, well, maybe I need to think about it. That means no. And when the Holy Spirit gets a hold of you, you're done. Paul was never ashamed of the gospel. The gospel, what we translate as gospel, Greek, is evangelio. What does it sound like? Evangelism. I mean, it's good news. You guys ashamed to go tell somebody good news? Anybody ever find out that, maybe one of your children has won an award at school, got a scholarship in college, getting ready to graduate? What do? Yeah, and you tell everyone who will listen. Now, let's take this a step further. Have you ever had one of your children who was having a child? Anybody in here who's a grandparent knows, right? There's this jump from parent to grandparent where you don't care who the person is, right? You pull up at Taco Bell and they get into when you get to the little order box thing and they come on and you can't understand. Taco Bell, may I have your order? And you go, yeah, I'd like a number 7. And by the way, I'm having my first grandbaby and it's a girl. We're not ashamed of good news, are we? We shouldn't be. And we darn shouldn't be when it's the power of God for salvation. See, that term power of God is actually the key to understanding Paul's statement here. Power of God means it's God's own way. Right? He didn't write to the Romans and tell them, hey y'all, when I get there, I'm going to show y'all what it is that you got to do to be saved. And I just realized something, y'all have texified me. I just said y'all twice in a sentence. Now, if I would have said, I'm fixing to come see y'all, I would have had to take a trip to Colorado. Right? He doesn't tell them, when I get there, I'm going to show you what you have to do to be saved. God does everything. It's His power. It's God's power. Right? The gospel, when we proclaim the gospel, you want to know what we're doing? All we're doing is announcing what God has already done. That's it. All the activity belongs to God. When I preach the gospel, the sacrificial atoning death of Jesus Christ, that was God. The conversion, or not, of the person whom I'm preaching the gospel to, that's God. What am I? I'm just the lousy sinner He decided to use that day to preach the gospel to somebody else who also happens to be a lousy sinner. That's it. It's all God. Right? God gave the Jews the law. Man was required to keep the law, yet they couldn't. Why? Because it affects a sin. So there's no way we can keep the law because sin has invaded our body. So it had to be all God. God gave the law to point to what He was doing in salvation. To show us our need for something outside of us to restore us to Him. I'm going to tell you guys something about the book of Romans. If you don't believe in the sinfulness of man or the doctrine of original sin, by the time we get through Romans, you will, because Paul beats that from death. Right? So now we move on to understanding salvation. Genesis 1 through 3 is the key to understanding salvation. And it's something I use this a lot, actually, and I'm going to give it to you guys. This part of the sermon is free. I'm not going to charge y'all for it. I use this a lot when I'm talking with atheists who believe in evolution. Right? You see, not only atheists who believe in evolution, but Christians who believe in theistic evolution. If that's one of you, I'm sorry. Evolution needs no salvation. There's no reason for it with the theory. Right? Because we're evolving. We're yet to be our best. If that's true, we don't need salvation because we've yet to obtain our best. We've yet to be that perfect created being that God made us to be and fall from that. How does something that is continually evolving fall from perfection? We have to have the fall for salvation. And it just doesn't work in the theistic evolutionary system. Because it's nothing but growth. And I said I was sorry, but I also believe in being sorry and helping people. So if you do believe in that, I have some great materials on theistic evolution and the issues with it from a scriptural and scientific standpoint. Right? Salvation demands man being in a perfect state and choosing rebellion in the garden. Salvation is the deliverance from the consequences of the fall and sin. And it can never be any more, and it can never be any less. We cannot make the message of salvation more than the deliverance of the consequences from the fall, and we can't make it any less. We try. We really do. See, there's this threefold delivery of sin, from sin and salvation. If you will, turn in your Bible to Psalm 51, verse 5. This is a psalm of David, a contrite sinner's prayer for pardon. In verse 5, he says, "Behold, I was brought forth in iniquity, and in sin my mother conceived me." There again we get the idea of original sin. Salvation delivers us from the state in which we were born in as sin. We were born in a state deserving of the wrath of God. Second thing, if you will, turn to John 8:34. It says, Jesus answered them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, everyone who commits sin is the slave of sin." See, we will be delivered from the power of sin. We're all slaves to it. The moment Adam sinned, all men become slaves of the God of this world. Not only that, we lost autonomous freedom. Now we have creature freedom. See, as fallen people, Adam and Eve had autonomous freedom. They could choose from an endless variety of choices. They could choose to obey God, or they could choose not to, and they chose not to. Right? We choose sin. Now, some of you may be saying, well, I don't get up in the morning and go, I choose to sin today. No, right? We just, even as kids, I know my children, I put them in a room with a candy bar, and I shut the door and I say, now don't eat that candy bar, son. Sorry. Welcome to being a PK. Don't eat the candy bar. Now I'm going to close the door to your room, and I'm going to head next door to church, and there's nobody here. If you need me, come find me, but you just stay in your room with that candy bar. I got to go work on my sermon. You know what's going to happen when I come back? The dog done ate that candy bar. Thug dog loves snakes. Pre-fall man was not under sin. Sin in the fall placed us there. And that's a situation we can't fix ourselves. Salvation delivers us from the pollution of sin. 2 Peter 1:4. It would probably help if you all would mark your Bibles where you're going to where we need to turn beforehand like I do. So no, I like listening to you turn your pages. What we call Baptist air conditioning. So for by these he granted to us his precious and magnificent promises, so that by them you may become partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world by lust. And this is an often forgotten truth. Sin affects every part of us and the world around us. When we see natural disasters, earthquakes, those types of things, that entered the world due to the fall. And one day, not only us as people, but this world will be remade in perfection as it was to be and without the pollution of sin. Doesn't salvation sound wonderful? All these things that happen when we're saved. But don't say these words like salvation or I'm saved loosely or glibly. Right? We all do it, right? We meet somebody and it's like, are you saved? Yeah, I'm saved. Oh, okay, cool. You know what I'd love for us to start doing? I would love for us to work into our vocabulary. Instead of saying, I'm saved, or yes, I have salvation, I'd like us to add just as often this phrase, I'm being saved. You may say, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm not saying you can lose it. I'm saying there's this progression in salvation, right? We covered a lot of what salvation does, but perfection and glorification only happen in eternity. And any of you in here who is in the process of being saved, right? Meaning that you are right now being sanctified by the Spirit, being made to look more and more like your big brother, Jesus Christ. You know this. On this day, you look more like him than you did on the day you got into a baptistry like this one and they plunged you under the water. So with that being said, be gentle with those not as far along as you. It's a process. Paul knows the power of the gospel and he trusts it to get people where they need to be. So how can we be ashamed? Isn't that what we communicate when we don't share the gospel, that we're ashamed of it? When we meet somebody and we don't even weave threads of the gospel, right? Even a simple God bless you to the checker at Walmart. Y'all, she works at Walmart. She needs God's blessing. Because 15 minutes in Walmart and I'm ready to go off. They test my Jesus every time I go to Walmart. They really do. Or when you expect a new Christian to be on the same level you are? But you're saying you're ashamed of the gospel? Because part of the gospel is growth. Don't be scared. It's the power of God. You've got it on your side. The gospel itself is the power of God. It's not describing an aspect of God or a part of God or a personality trait of God. It's saying it is the very power of God. God, who is all-powerful, that's his power. He saves. He does a lot of other things. He's got more power than just saving. He's all-powerful. But it's all on his part. It's power for salvation. Wouldn't you like to see a community that wasn't ashamed? Spread the gospel. So I gotta ask you, first thing, do you have your one? If you're here and you're wondering, what the heck is he talking about? I challenged everybody. Pick one person this year to invest in. One, not like 15, don't try and take on the world. Pick one person. One person, they may not even be unbelievers. They just are backslidden. They don't come to church. They don't live the life they profess to have. And invest in them for a year. Pick one. If you don't know who to do, if you're like, I don't know, I told y'all, call me. I know people. I know people who know people. I got people. We'll find you someone. Right? Wouldn't it be amazing if from our one, our neighbor, our hand, Hale Center, Abernathy, Hale County, West Texas, Texas, and the rest of the world became unashamed of the gospel? And it all starts with one. One person, like Paul, saying, I am not ashamed of the gospel. Because it's the power of God. So that man may be righteous as they live by faith. If you're here this morning and you've never given your life to Christ, you're going to have an opportunity to do so in just a moment. In just a moment, I'm going to close on a word of prayer. During that time, I want you to pray whatever God has laid upon your heart. I'm not going to walk you through a formulaic prayer. Whatever God put on your heart, that's what he needs to hear, not what I tell you. After that, we're going to sing a hymn of invitation. If that was you this morning, I'm going to ask that you come forward. Allow me the honor, the privilege to pray with you and walk alongside you in the newness of life. If there's anything else that the Lord has laid upon your heart, I'm going to ask that you silently, prayerfully confess that to him. Maybe you've been visiting for a while and you've never joined. Maybe you need to come up and pray at an altar. Whatever it is, I ask you just to silently, prayerfully lift that up to him. And if you need my prayer, please come forward. In Jesus' name. Join me in prayer. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, Lord. We thank you for your gospel. Lord, we thank you that it's your power, not ours. Because, Lord, if it was our power, we'd mess it up. atoning sacrifice of your Son. Thank you for the ways you bless us. Lord, I ask that as we seek this year of investing into people earnestly, that your power would be seen for your glory. Lord, this morning as we come before you, we ask that you forgive us wherever we've failed. We're not a perfect people, Lord, but we love you. And we seek to glorify you here. In our tiny little corner of your paradise. We ask all these things